Thanks again for joining today. Today we have a great presentation on energy audits, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, quick introduction. My name's Fred. I work here at Clear Result, and we've been lucky enough to continue providing these webinars throughout the remainder of the year. This is a replacement to our in-person conference that we do every year. So thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you in person when that's going to be doable. So today we're going to go through our sponsors, give a quick shout out to all of them, give you some additional educational opportunities that we have for some of our trade allies. We'll dive into the presentation and we'll do a Q&A session. As a reminder, all of our attendees are on mute, so if you do have any questions, there's a chat bar to the left-hand side, should be on your screen, might be on the right-hand side, but there should be a spot there for you to put in your questions. Throughout the presentation, feel free to drop those in and we'll address them at the end. And we will have a recording of this presentation up on the website. And if you do have any questions after the presentation, feel free to send them in through the chat bar on our website and we'll get those answered. So real quick, a shout out to all of our sponsors. They've been really gracious in continuing to support us while we do this as a webinar series. So thank you to all of them. We have Consumers Energy, Semco's Energy Waste Reduction Program, Efficiency United, UPCO, and DTE. Really big thank you to all of them for allowing us to continue to provide this educational opportunity for Michigan and the C&I industry overall. Real quick, the last webinar series with Mark Jewell is this week. So if you have attended any of the sessions before, or if you still want to join, there is still that opportunity. We have the presentations recorded as well. So if you are interested in that, please just reach out to us and let us know. The last presentation is this week on November 12th. And it's on assembling all the pieces to win. So it's kind of taking all the presentations that have come before it and putting it all together into a winning strategy. It's a $588 value and no cost to trade allies with Semco's Energy Waste Reduction Program and Efficiency United or Efficiency United. So if you do have any questions or if you want to join that, feel free to reach out. You can go to sellingenergy.com/Michigan to sign up. And one more time, we have the grill kit available. If you attend 2 of these webinars, we'll mail you a grill kit just to say thank you for being a part of this new kind of trail that we've blazed. You know, we've had a lot of good success with this webinar, and we hope that you all have enjoyed it as well. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our speakers for today. They're going to be talking about energy audits in the C&I sector. We have Cheri, Holman, and Jillian Gem from the U.S. Green Building Council of West Michigan. So take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having us, Fred, and we're excited to be a part of the Michigan C&I conference today, and we're excited to talk to you about energy audits. So I just wanted to give a little background about who we are and what we do, a little context. See here. So we are staying on the first slide, Fred. So our organization is the U.S. Green Building Council of West Michigan, and we're here to work to transform the way buildings and communities are designed, built, and operated that improves the quality of life in Michigan. And we support all third-party certifications. So LEED, Living Building Challenge, Energy Star certification. You know, we really just believe that third-party certifications ensure the integrity of green building and operations of those green buildings. But with that being said, we heavily support all steps in the right direction. And we're working to reduce carbon and to improve the health of occupants. So I'm going to volley it over to my partner, Jillian, to talk about one of the programs we run.
Thank you, Cheri, and thank you for having us. I'm Jillian Gem. I'm the program manager for the U.S. Green Building Council, and one of the programs that we're talking about on the next slide is the Grand Rapids 2030 district. The Grand Rapids 2030 District is a program that really interests me because it's all about the people of Grand Rapids investing in their own communities. It's a public-private partnership of building owners that are invested in bringing Grand Rapids along with the Paris Climate Accord agreements. And we're investing in the vibrance and vitality of our community, increasing the marketability and profitability of the properties that exist in this city. And that will be improving the environmental impact of those urban areas. And overall, it gives a deep sense of pride in the city that we live in for being able to invest in the built environment in such a way that aligns us to be able to be prosperous for the future. So something that we'll be talking about deeper from this is that for all of Grand Rapids to succeed, that's exactly it. We need all of Grand Rapids to participate. And there's different barriers to entry when it comes to investing in property and managing property in an environmentally sustainable way. And one of the ways that we work to increase the participation and decrease the barriers to entry is through the Energy Assistance Program, which we'll be talking about later. So if there's any more questions on this in particular, go ahead and throw them in the chat and we'll make sure to address them shortly. Next slide, please.
Yeah, definitely. And we don't just work in Grand Rapids. We're actually have a reach that's statewide. Some of you may know about the Michigan Battle of the Buildings. It is the biggest loser-styled energy reduction competition that started in 2014. And there's about 250 million square feet, over 1,000 buildings involved in this energy reduction competition. And it gives out awards each year to those who reduce energy the most, regardless of other green building practices. We're looking at energy and water, 10 categories with that. And, you know, that's happening right now. As a matter of fact, we're giving out awards. November 19th is the awards ceremony. So you'll get to find out who the biggest losers are from 2019 on the 19th of November. So let's get into the audits. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of confusion around audits. There can be confusion. You know, there's a lot of pressure to employ energy saving technology within your facilities. And it can be pretty confusing to kind of sift through the different contractors and service providers that are, you know, offering the latest technology that can help you save energy. So we're going to try to demystify that a little bit today, but where I want to start is energy benchmarking. That's step one. So you need to know where you're at in order to measure and monitor your path forward. So I like to call this, you know, just kind of a line in the sand. It's going to help you make decisions based on your largest return on investment, right? So again, you're figuring out where you're at. This is just to give you a little context. Benchmarking your building is free. It's through EPA. It's called Energy Star Portfolio Manager. You can start an account, no charge, put in some utility bills. Basically, it's providing your total energy use, your KBTU. So that's the culmination of all the gas, electricity, if you use steam, divided into one unit of measure, a KBTU, and then divided by square foot. I'm sorry, times it, or added into one unit of measure, divided by square foot. This gives you that line in the sand, right? So you have the opportunity then to measure yourself moving forward based on that hard number instead of basing it on utility costs, because they are ever changing. So to get back to energy audits again a little bit and why we do it, you know, I go back to a story that I've told a few times about a supermarket. And this supermarket's, you know, has potential for energy savings. So they decide to move ahead with a refrigeration project. Fantastic, saving all kinds of energy. But an energy audit, without the steps of an energy audit, it may have been that a lighting retrofit could have been a larger return on investment. Now, I don't know the answer to this. Each building is unique, but that's why energy audits are so important, so that you can really take a look at the different projects in your building, what's possible, what has the greatest return on investment, and where you want to start. So if you'll go to the next slide, and talk a little bit about ASHRAE, because this is really the Bible in energy audits. ASHRAE, which is long-term, the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. So they outline 3 separate types of audits for us. With level 1, we're going to dive deeper into these, so I'm just going to kind of blaze over them just to familiarize. The most basic type of audit is called an ASHRAE level 1. We like to refer to this as a walkthrough audit. And then we move into an ASHRAE level 2, which is a level of detail that can justify project implementation. This should give you most of the detail you need to decide whether or not a project is something that you want to follow through with. And then as a real deep dive, we have the ASHRAE level 3 audit. And that is, detailed system analysis. And again, we'll jump a little deeper into this. If you'll go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about the level 1 audit. This is something that most of the utility providers are doing these types of audits, a walkthrough analysis, no charge, not necessarily following all the guidelines of ASHRAE, but it's similar, right? It's a basic starting point, and it involves interviews with facility and staff. It reviews your utility bills, other operating data, and its goal is to identify glaring energy inefficiencies. So with this, sorry, I'm trying to get my notes here to make sure that I don't forget to tell you anything that I wanted to say. I like this audit too. It's great to have another set of eyes on your building. Getting someone in from outside the organization can be really helpful. And it's also good for the building types who might not have a facility staff. So have someone to come in and, kind of holistically look at the operation. Yeah, so it gives you a preliminary report, and it should detail all your low cost, no cost measure, and any potential capital improvements that would need further study in subsequent audits. And I'll have you go to the next slide and volley it over to Jillian to talk about the ASHRAE level 2 audit.
Thanks, Cheri. So the ASHRAE level 2 audit is a commonly sought audit. And what Cheri had said with it looks at your utility usages, it goes deeper than that. It does look at your utilities, but it looks at your rate structures, your scheduling structures, and overall the bird's eye view of what this data is telling you from all the utility information available. Sometimes invoices from the utility companies can be a little bit confusing, but it's actually a landmine of information that can help you. So in addition to looking deep into the utility information of your actual energy usage, they also look at the way your building is using. So as opposed to a walkthrough telling you the glaring differences that could be energy opportunities for you, they look at, how should I say, the whole picture of it in silos and systems approach at the same time. So they look at energy consumption by end use and identifying opportunities for efficiency as prioritized through, they all have different names, like energy conservation measure is a common one, or maybe sometimes ECO, energy conservation opportunity. Regardless, they're usually prioritized by some sort of financial metric, whether that be net present value or simple payback. And sometimes if folks are really savvy, they also include that utility rebates available per energy conservation measure to be able to buy down that initial cost. And these are prioritized in ways that show energy savings opportunities as per silo and as well as systems thinking approach. So what do I necessarily mean by that? You can replace your lighting, for example, and you can schedule your lighting differently. Though let's talk about our HVAC equipment. And if we are updating our HVAC equipment, we realize that if we change the way the air is moving within the building, we actually don't have to use so much. And if we don't have to use so much, we don't have to spend as much on maybe, taking the humidity away from the windows in the winter, right? So this systems thinking approach and siloed approach is what a ASHRAE Level 2 audit will be able to do for you. For context, PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, also requires an ASHRAE Level 2 audit before continuing through their financing program. In Michigan, PACE is usually administered through Lean and Green Michigan, and it depends the availability from county to county. If you have more questions on that, though, I'm happy to answer them in the chat, either about ASHRAE Level 2 audits in general or from PACE specifically. And then I'm going to turn it over to Cheri again to talk about ASHRAE Level 3 audits.
Sure. Great. That was great context. And I can't stress enough that that really is the typical and audit that's out there. If you're looking at a contractor, you want to make sure that they're, depending on what you're looking for, but an ASHRAE Level 2 audit is a great way to identify those, inefficiencies in your building and really the most typical roadmap that service providers are following. But ASHRAE Level 3, this is the platinum audit. It's the Cadillac plan. An ASHRAE Level 3 audit usually focuses on a whole building computer simulation, where a program is used to model how your building would react to changes if in its energy systems. And whether those are major HVAC retrofits or perhaps new windows or a roof, this audit would likely collect data for weeks, maybe even months. Data loggers would typically track things like pumps and motor operations, temperatures, lighting levels, behavior changes. And then once all this data is compiled, it's dumped into the model. That would then show you how these changes would affect building operation. So I just want to point out that this level of detail is typically reserved for complex commercial and industrial buildings, and usually not something the typical building owner or facility manager is looking for in an audit. But certainly a great way to drill down either on the whole building or a certain process within your building. This can be a great way to analyze that as well. So if you'll skip over to the next slide, Fred, and we're going to talk about some case studies and some videos on audits that we facilitated. Because in partnership with the state of Michigan, the Department of Energy, Great Lakes and Environment, we provide customized audits to small businesses, nonprofits, houses of worship, and educational institutions. And we partner primarily with our Grand Rapids 2030 district members to conduct these audits. And I want to volley it back to Jillian and let her talk about some of the audits that we've conducted and some of the outcomes that have come from those audits.
Thank you, Cheri. In the next slide, you'll be able to see the Energy Assistance Program, but in Spanish. And this is purposefully this way. So as I said before, the Energy Assistance Program was, I guess, a child program out of the Grand Rapids 2030 district, because to be able to achieve the 2030 district goals, everybody needs to participate, but everybody's starting place in this whole race is different, right? And one of the main things that we could do to help what we call hard to reach building sectors, which is educational institutions, nonprofits, small commercial, houses of worship, affordable multifamily, is to meet them where they're at. And what better way to meet them where they're at than a customized audit? And one thing that we were talking about here with these ASHRAE level audits is that generally ASHRAE has given you these levels and guidelines from how deep you want to go into assessing your own building. But remember that you are the customer and you can create the audit that you want. And knowing the customizability of an audit and just generally these guidelines, we created what we call a ASHRAE 1.5 styled audit. because we wanted to take all the aspects of the walkthrough, because those are crucial, and have specific deep dives of aspects of ASHRAE Level 2 audits to create what we thought would be the best starting block for folks who we're trying to reach. And folks who are trying to reach from these 5 sectors that we talked about earlier, both Cheri and me, also come from different levels of experience with facilities management. Many of these folks wear different hats, like multiple hats, taller than Cat in the Hat. And some folks actually know very much about this particular thing, though are cash strapped or resources strapped, don't have a lot of connections to get to these things. I'm thinking particularly about nonprofits who have a lot of things on their plate, but don't know where to start when it comes to like connections with the energy industry. So, and also language barrier actually is a dilemma that we face in Michigan with our multilingual folks all over the state. In Grand Rapids in specific, the language that is most prevalent besides English is Spanish. So this is a bilingual program on purpose. And what we cover here is that we cover the utility, the deep utility look that is in ASHRAE Level 2 audit. We take a deep walk through and look at their systems and the siloed approaches. And if there's obvious systems thinking that we can be using with their facilities, we do. We also take a look at how to reduce their energy use in a way that has a payback that is accessible to them, and as well as the CO2 reductions associated with these energy savings. We also set them up with a benchmarking platform through the EPA called Energy Star Portfolio Manager. I'm sure folks have at least heard of the name. And that is the most widely used energy benchmarking program around the nation, and also it's free, which is helpful for these folks who have dollars that need to go a lot of places. So we set them up on Energy Star Portfolio Manager and give them a benchmark so they understand where they go, and also we set them up on a strategic plan for where they want to be. And the strategic plan has ECMs or ECOs prioritized by payback and energy savings opportunities. So if there's any questions on this, please feel free to throw them in the chat. And I'm going to go into a few case studies of the success stories that have come from these energy audits on the next slide. So the first one is Sanchez. And Sanchez Tapas Bistro is a Spanish tapas restaurant that maybe some of you have had the opportunity to go into. I highly recommend from a culinary experience alone. But also, if you want to take a look at all the energy savings they have in there, please feel free to poke around and make sure you look at the ceiling, because that is actually a key source of their energy savings. So when we first came in, they have a green heart, I guess. They have composting and they have recycling, and they locally source their chorizo and their eggs, and they love their goat cheese, which is, they know this provider by name. They actually know a lot of their suppliers by name because it's all locally sourced. And they're very careful on the miles in between their ingredients and their store. So as I was saying, folks can be really invested into the idea of sustainability. They'll need a little bit of help on what to do with the facilities management of their buildings. So when we did this audit, we found that they really don't need a lot of heating. Actually, they rarely heat, even in the winter, because they have you don't see this in these pictures right now, but again, go into the restaurant, you're gonna love it, because the kitchen is open facing, so the heat from the kitchen comes and warms the area. But this also creates temperature, I guess, heat pockets around, because they're a two-level restaurant. And so when they were able to add from the audit box fans that will help circulate the air above, as well as we provided an assessment for destratification, which will bring the air from top to bottom and bring it lower for the kind of colder areas by the windows, it made a big difference. Also, part of these energy audits was adjusting the thermostats and the scheduling of the temperature changes. That made a big difference too, and just little behaviors like that. As well as there's a lot of heat coming from that building, but what can we do about the building envelope that needs a little sealing. So there's like door sealants, window sealants, which was very suggested, with an almost immediate payback. And also an economizer and a new AC for the summer because it gets kind of toasty in there was recommended. And actually, the Sanchez Tapas Bistro participated in the Michigan Battle of the Buildings competition, which we talked about earlier in this presentation. And Sanchez, just this family-owned restaurant in Grand Rapids, won against all of the retail, not retail, the restaurants in Michigan. They won the Michigan Battle of the Buildings competition with a 15% energy reduction. Excuse me, I meant 11%. Either way, they succeeded. And this was mostly because of air conditioning replacement, LED light replacement, a thermostat adjustment, and the sealants on the building envelope. So as always, if there's any questions on that, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to move to the next case study in the next slide.
And this, I just got to point out that this audience is the first to know about Sanchez because those are actually being announced on Thursday. But yeah. So you're now in the know.
You're now in the know, and you better not spill the beans, okay?
Right.
You're safe in this virtual circle. So Ballpark Floral is another fan favorite of the Energy Assistance Program, and they're also locally owned from a family-owned restaurant, family-owned business in the John Ball neighborhood by John Ball Zoo. Perhaps some of you are familiar with that area. The floral shop itself has been around for more than 100 years, and it is a business where generations go to. She told a story which warmed my heart that she provided the bouquets for her family. Her family provided the bouquets for a wedding, a baby shower, and then later on down the road, also the funeral for the same family, because that's how deeply entrenched this floral shop is with the neighborhood. And this is the kind of folks that make Grand Rapids so wonderful, right? And so that's why the Energy Assistance Program makes sure we can help these hard to reach communities. And so the Ballpark Floral Shop was in English, and what they were working on is from a building that had been revamped on the outside and the inside multiple times. So in the end, the bones were still very original, right? So the audit recommended insulating the building exterior, like the roofing, and tightening up the walls in between the retail space and the loading garage. Arranging the cooling, the storage areas. I had no idea how much energy it took to make a flower look pretty, but now I do. So you got to think carefully about those, the big cooling walk-in coolers that they have for these flowers and these bulbs and such, because they have to keep them, primed the day of, and that takes a lot of careful planning. And then of course, the thermostat needed to be adjusted as well, and lighting replacement too. So they won Michigan Battle of the Buildings, remember, between the Circle Confidence, and they were the 15% winners. So they won with the retail space against everybody else in Michigan. And they couldn't have done that without the energy audit because they didn't know what they didn't know. And the operational costs were reduced. And with those operational costs reduced, they were able to reinvest that back into the employee profit share programs they have locally, which I think was just a fantastic way to be able to use those funds. I remember, I think it was 8 months after this audit, the financial person in the store named Linda, she had called me up and she had said that in only 8 months, they already saved $1,000. And that might be jump change for some folks, but that's a big deal for them. And she said, you know how many bouquets that would take for us to sell the equivalent of $1,000? And I'm like, no, Linda, I have no idea. And she's like, well, I'm an energy savings believer now. So this, this really matters to folks. And whether you're a restaurant or retail or a nonprofit for at-risk youth, which would be a video coming up on the next slide. And it seems that the video was having difficulty working. Fred, do you want to try it once more?
Yeah, I just sent it into the chat if everyone wants to pull it up and view it right after this presentation. We can't seem to get it to work in presentation mode, but I'll also be sending it out to everyone that's here about an hour after. You should receive an email thanking you for coming, and then it'll have the link to this video as well.
And y'all should really take the time to watch this video if it doesn't work right now. It's just such a, sorry, I'm on the edge of my seat seeing if it's gonna go.
Yeah, it's working on my end. I'm seeing it. No sound.
Is the sound. So this is Chandra Steininger, and she's the CEO and founder of the HQ. And this is HQ's building. So they were very fortunate to have the building donated to this nonprofit, which is a drop-in shelter for at-risk or youth experiencing homelessness. So either experiencing homelessness or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And the reason why this drop-in shelter was created is because this is the key intervention point to stop someone from continuing the cycle of homelessness. If you're able to grab them in their youth to be able to meet their needs before they get out of the foster systems or the systems that are meant to be able to help teenagers, because about that like mid 20 mark, there is significantly less resourcing than for folks who are just 5 years younger. And with this drop-in center, they're able to help folks get the right identification information they need to be able to hold down a job. They connect folks with housing opportunities, long-term housing. But in the meantime, if they need, health screenings, or if they need like a resume help builder, if they need honestly just to wash their clothes, this drop-in shelter is able to help them with that and to provide them at least one hot meal a day. And also counseling too, because at-risk youth sometimes have unstable or unsafe housing that they can go to, but are trying not to endanger themselves by going to. So being able to talk with an empathetic counselor is a big help to be able to move that teen through the difficult transition to adulthood. So that is HQ. Big fan. Please go ahead and watch the video. But what was interesting about this particular building is that it is supposed to be a safe haven for youth and young adults. And the building was donated so kindly from I think anonymous donor to HQ. However, with inheriting that building, they inherited its history. And one of the difficulties they were having is that whenever it rained, they would get spider web leaks, or just honestly plain leaks just coming down the drywall. And that is devastating on a facilities perspective, of course, but also when you see your safe haven, I don't want to use a dramatic word like crumbling, but like having difficulties around you, it's something that hurts the spirit of the kids who are trying to go there. So they were able to find out through the audit that the R value of the roof was only like 3, something ridiculously small, because it was just the roof. It's a nice barrel roof. So through the audit, they were able to find a way to bump it up to at least 30 in a way that they could afford it. And they also looked at the HVAC systems and the different zoning, because it had a zoning that reflected the utility of the building before it became a drop-in center. So they were able to take a look at that as well as the lighting. And they were having some temperature difficulties with the high ceilings and the front of windows that you saw there. So they were able to find ways to not lose so much of that thermal bridging during the winter and in the summer. I don't want to steal the thunder though, so please watch the video. I think you're gonna love it. And I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide real quick. So this is the time for questions. Do any of you folks in the audience have questions for us regarding this? And if you have any more information, I'll be able to put my my email in the chat for you guys to get a hold of me if there's any questions that you have.
Yeah, thank you,
for
Cheri. Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, thank you guys for a great presentation. If you do have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat. And I guess for myself, how long is a lead time from when you first engage with an organization and to when you kind of close out that project? Like, does it kind of depend, or is there kind of an expected rate of time that you would cover with them?
Want to take that, Jillian?
Sure, I was actually looking at you.
Okay. Well, I was going to say about 8 weeks is a pretty good measure of time. Although you're looking at your utility bills for up to 18 months in the past to develop your baseline. There certainly is some processes to go through when doing an audit, information to provide to your auditor. So, a lot of it depends on how quickly you turn that information around, getting those utility bills and that history to your auditor is so important for them to understand and to benchmark your building. And then, of course, there is time sometimes between the audit and the project. And I was reminded when Jillian was telling the story of Chandra at HQ that the audit actually gave them the information that they were needing in order to secure a grant to do the repairs on their building that was needed to make it not only more energy efficient, but a safer space. So, the length of time, I would say, if you're going to go through an audit of any type, the walkthrough, fairly quickly, get the detail back to the auditor. Level 2, a little more obviously. Level 3 is going to consume quite a bit of time, maybe months to go through that process. But a lot of it just depends on the partnership. Getting the data to the contractor, having the contractor get the information back and develop that strategic plan. I would give myself 2 months to go through that process, and 8 weeks, and I would say it varies with a lot of different things in between that, but 8 weeks, wouldn't you say, Jillian?
Yeah, approximately. Once you apply for the program, I immediately get to you. And sometimes there's a bit of a waiting list when the 8 weeks starts. But once the 8 weeks begins and we have that kickoff meeting, you can reasonably expect it within 2, maybe 3 at max months.
Great, thank you. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions from our group, so we'll wrap it up. Again, thank you guys so much for coming today. And again, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to drop them in the live chat that we have on the CNI webinar website. Yeah, and next week we have compressed air with Joe Glissian. He's with a consulting firm out of Michigan, and he has over 40 years of experience in the field. So be sure to register at the website below, mienergyconference.com, and we'd love to see you there. Again, thank you guys, and everybody have a good day.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.